Alright, mods, keep spamming that link. We need everyone to go hit like and retweet this shit. I mean, it actually is crazy. Should I follow it up with like the actual vote tally on here, maybe? Oh, we have it right here. It's already open. You guys just aren't thinking about the macro and the micro, though. I mean, what about the CIA and DOJ officials? They have families too. God, fuck. Let's go. I feel so good about tomorrow. Let's go. Let's fucking go. For real, like, let's go. I feel so good about tomorrow. You cannot wrinkle the hinkle. Oh my God. Oh my. I will get some sleep. So you guys, you know how I told you, like, I was worried about the sleeping past my debate? Well, my base-ass housemate, Max, that came in a moment ago, he said, or no, he's been waking me up early, right? Because he's little Max, he gets his backpack on, he goes to school in the morning, he goes to USC. It's so funny. I feel like I need to, like, make him lunch in the morning for his school day. So he goes to, thank you for the super chat.
I hope you were respectful on your debate, TMR, like you were with Bosch, even if they call you a Nazi. Our side has the truth, we don't need bad manner.
I'm going to be, so my plan is, I'm hoping he's going to be respectful. He's usually very respectful in his debates. So I'm going to be respectful. Relatively same energy levels and a little bit, maybe a little more energy, but I'm prepared to be respectful, yeah. Anyway, so he's been waking me. So first of all, I've been going to bed earlier. I've been waking up at like 8 a.m. every morning, hitting the gym immediately. Got my Syncter Fit workout app. Shout out Chris Hemsworth. Get me on that shit. And I've been working out every morning early. He's been getting me up early. Tomorrow we're going to start the stream 9:30 a.m. We're going to get a little pregame going. You guys are welcome to tune into that. We're going a little pregame. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. How's that tweet doing? So that was a crazy story, right? That shit just blew my mind. Blew my mind. I don't feel no ways tired. That is what she said, right? I don't feel no ways tired. Andrew, thank you for the super chat.
I'm the guy who would make lunch for my friends in the morning. I can make tasty Italian subs and killer bento boxes. By the way, master debating pregame?
None of that. None of that. I'm a full American, thank you.
Sam usually sucks, but it's cool he's platforming you.
I would have to agree with that. I am appreciative that he is going to be dual streaming this. I think it's going to be good. Yeah. You guys see this? This had me dead. I was laughing so hard.
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
What a stupid son of a bitch. That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch. I was just like, what the fuck? I saw Oz react to this. He's like, I didn't know presidents could curse. Bro, imagine how much people would have freaked out if Trump had said this to, like, one of those dipshit CNN reporters. Like, imagine if Trump, like, imagine if it was like a woman CNN reporter, and Trump said something. He's like, stupid son of a bitch. All hell would break loose. That is all they would talk about for like the next 4 weeks. If Trump said something like this, are you kidding me? People would have lost it. There would have been a congressional investigation, House committee set up to investigate this. There would have been an impeachment on this. Censure resolution in the House. It would have been so funny. Ilhan Omar comes into the House next day. We need to protect the freedoms of journalists and publishers in this country who are free to do their job without undue burdens and stifling of their fundamental work by the highest office in this country, the President of the United States. Yesterday, Donald Trump called one of our own beloved, a CNN reporter, a stupid son of a bitch. And today, I have decided to introduce a censure resolution to condemn President Donald Trump for the egregious acts against our basic First Amendment rights that we witnessed yesterday. By the way, extradite Julian Assange. I could be like a Democrat in Congress. I could do that. America, what you witnessed yesterday when Donald Trump called our favorite CNN reporter a stupid son of a bitch was an attack on our democracy. Now, attacks on our democracy must be met with strength, accountability, and above all, action. And that is what I seek to bring to this body today. Today is January 24th. I stand with each of you on the floor of this Congress, 117th Congress. And I am here to bring a little bit of this thing that I call accountability that I learned from my father growing up in California's 49th district to this here chamber. Today I'm issuing a censure resolution on Donald Trump over his egregious acts against our democracy we witnessed
Her
yesterday.
amendment would have an anti-BDS provision.
Yeah, there would have been an anti-BDS provision in this. Section 4. No funds may be allocated to an international boycott, divest, sanction act. Q Star Spangled Banner. Stupid son of a bitch.
More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
It is funny. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch. Speaking of offspring of bitches, let's look no further than Representative Ilhan Omar, everybody. You guys, election season is coming up. Election season is coming up. You know what that means? It's time for the squad to start tweeting about popular policies they're not fighting for.
LBJ cursed all the time. That ship has sailed.
Thank you, Andrew Matthews. I was not aware of that. That time has come. Election season is upon us, and it's time for the squad to start tweeting about all the policies they haven't fought for over the past year and a half in this session of Congress. AOC literally tweeted about Medicare for All like twice during the entire past year. And you expect me to believe that like they care about this? Of course they're not fighting for this. You know what? You know what's funny? You want to hear something funny? Oh, we're also having on Caleb Maupin next week. Samira Khan and Haas on Friday. Caleb Maupin next week. You want to hear something funny? This is a quote from Sam Cedar. Joe Biden is proposing what I think to be a horrible idea for healthcare, subsidizing COBRA, which I think everybody agrees is incredibly wasteful. It's basically just a stop to the insurance companies. That is what he said about COBRA premiums, subsidizing COBRA premiums, which Congress voted to do. They voted to subsidize COBRA premiums for 6 months. And it just so happens that the entire squad voted for that. Isn't that funny? The entire squad voted for that. Very wasteful, completely outrageous policy proposal, subsidize private health insurance premiums. Sam, the squad voted for that. God, I can't wait for this one. I'm so fucking ready. Medicare for All will fully guarantee health care as a human right. No questions asked. No premiums. No deductibles. No co-payments. Well, Ilhan, it would be useful, I guess, if you fought for this policy, or you talked about this policy more than just during election time. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit of an idealist, but I think if you are running on this policy, you should fight for it during Congress. Let's be real here. Let's be real here. Could the squad have forced voted on Medicare for All during the speakership vote? Yes, of course. Of course. And it was actually, again, Sam Cedar who said, the idea is to get some progressives to say we want to vote on Medicare for all in the House. If Medicare for all passes in the House, it doesn't mean anything insofar as it going into effect, but there is value in getting the caucus on the record. If the Democratic caucus votes for it, it sets a marker for when they control both houses. That's interesting. That's interesting. They could have forced a vote on Medicare for all then, they didn't. They could have forced a vote on Medicare for all during the adopting of the congressional budget, the American Rescue Plan Act, For the People Act, increasing funding for Capitol Police and Security, the State Department and USAID budget, Legislative Branch Appropriations Act, Combating International Islamophobia Act, when they extended government funding and Emergency Assistance Act, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, further extending government funding acts to avoid government shutdown. They could have forced vote on any of those policies because each of those votes actually passed by less than the margin that the squad holds in Congress. Increasing funding for Capitol Police.
Funny, she tweeted this after her appearance with Sam.
Yeah, it is fun. Thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush apparently had meetings with Taiwanese separatists. Samir Khan tweeted this out. Taiwan has moved cautiously to cultivate more progressive support, according to this article. Mother Jones. Mother Jones is probably rolling in her grave right now.
All right, guys. Gotta be excited today. Got the everything's updated. Everything is good to go, and we actually got a live stream straight from, I don't know, an actual setup. So that is a first, a setup to live stream. Everything is updated, and we are going for the first time from scratch to stream. Small steps, everybody, small steps. I am the Stony Progressive. We are going to be burning through some information tonight. And I got a lot of shatter on the end of that, so it's not going to burn so well yet. Nancy Pelosi is my main topic. We will definitely be taking down Nancy Pelosi and anything and everything. And I just happened, I wake up, I felt like I needed to take down Nancy Pelosi. I needed a big name for my first day off in a while. And she announces that she is running again. So that is absolutely fantastic timing for everybody here. So hopefully that clip tomorrow will actually get us a little leeway. We can start taking down all incumbents. All incumbents must be voted out. That's the kind of Congress we have. But while we wait for a few more people to get going, maybe some similar streams, some people to notice what time it is. While that's all going, I did want to start the stream out today with some MMT info. This was a video a couple weeks ago. I wanted to do it every night, and instead of just kind of jamming the Jackson right here at 11:45, I wanted to not wait for people to get on. I wanted to do this video while we waited and seen, and let's get a little baked and watch some really important information on MMT. This is going to be Ron Placone. Get your news on with Ron, his show. He does interviews, and on a monthly basis, he does a bit on the MMT situation, monetary. Yeah, so let's check out
these segments. If you're not familiar with MMT at all, which we're gonna give a quick elevator pitch on what that is in just a second, but a lot of these segments, if you're not familiar at all, it's usually not a great place to start with a lot of the segments we have done. It's good to kind of go backwards and listen to our first segment where we really focus on an introduction to MMT, or review some other MMT resources like my guest podcast, or the work of Stephanie Kelton, or the work of David Graeber. But this particular episode, because of something that happened in the world that we're going to get into, I think is actually a great snapshot into, if you don't know what MMT is at all, this is a great snapshot that really tells the story of what MMT is and how it works and how this theory applies to our everyday life. But before we get into all that, I'm going to bring in my guest to get me through the MMT mountain. Please welcome back. He is the host of the Activist MMT podcast, and you guys know him from this segment. He's here once a month. Please welcome back to the show, starting out 2022, Mr. Jeff Epstein. Not that one, the other Jeff Epstein. What's up, Jeff?
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year, Ron. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm okay. The Cookie Monster eyes were a very nice touch, assuming that was, photoshopped and not, actually part of her.
Oh, the thumbnail, you mean? Yeah.
It was good.
Joe did that. So, yeah, kudos to Joe for making the thumbnail today. So, before we start, let's give the quick elevator pitch on what MMT is. So, MMT stands for Modern Monetary Theory, and it's basically the economic truth that we create our currency. We, the United States, create our currency. So the whole idea of we can't afford this is not really a thing. It's a choice. We can afford anything we want. And as far as spending goes, they try to wave the inflation scare over you. Oh man, you print money, all of a sudden inflation happens. Creating currency alone does not cause inflation. You need to have other factors like shitty policy or environmental disasters or something like that to really cause inflation. And MMT really dives into those truths. So in reality, we can pay for anything we want. Jeff, what would you like to add to that before we?
That was good. I would say that in the federal national context only, which is, this is not true in the state context or in the local context, but in the national context, they have the unlimited capacity to create money as long as it does not cause inflation and as long as we have the productive capacity to do so. So if we have the resources, if we are physically capable of doing it, then it is safe to create the money to do so. It would not be inflationary to do so. The elevator pitch I would give that I've been kind of leaning towards is MMT is an accurate map of the economy. It doesn't mean that you're going to get to your destination because there may be someone there trying to stop you. But it shows you where these destinations are, so you can decide where to go and how to get there and beeline to it, as opposed to the economic map that Jennifer Psaki uses, which is a completely bogus and completely fantastical map that, if you believe it.
And another reason I wanted to loop back to this was because, of course, we will be doing. She made news today, so we're going to have to talk about her again later.
Then yeah, sure, everything that we can't afford it makes sense. But that belief is based on a foundation of nonsense.
Is it Psaki or Psaki?
I have no idea. I actually have no idea. So
it's not all that important. I mean, her job shouldn't even exist. Why do we have a White House press secretary?
She's a professional liar.
She's a professional liar. They're all professional liars. And it's all just, they try to make it out, the president has a ton of places to be. We can't possibly hear from the president directly. Really? We can't? The last guy spent most of his time watching TV and golfing. The guy before him spent most of his time making excuses. The guy
I don't think they want him in
most
front
of
of
his
Mike.
time on vacation. And the guy now, I don't know what Joe Biden spends his time doing, probably relearning the alphabet. We can hear from him directly.
Right.
We'll wait
right.
for it. We'll freaking wait for it. If Jill's changing his diaper, we'll freaking wait, and he can talk to the nation that he's supposed to be leading. So it's an unnecessary job. We should eliminate that job. I'm usually all for jobs, but not in this case. Not in this case.
Regarding being a liar, do you know the movie Miracle on 34th Street?
No.
No, it's a wonderful.
Some of Ron's other, he has more funny things that are just straight comedy because he is a comic. But one of the things he does is You Should Know This, in which he tries to guess movies and Graham Elwood tries to guess songs. And so if you ever ask anything to Ron about movies, he's absolutely not gonna know it. He'll never know it.
Like 1940s Christmas movie that you should watch with your kids. It's genuinely good for adults and kids. Well, okay, but whatever. It's a great movie. And so we were watching this movie, and it's about Santa Claus. It's about is Santa Claus real? This guy really thinks he's Santa Claus, and he goes to the New York Supreme Court, and is this guy really Santa Claus? So the New York Supreme Court has to decide on this. The judge doesn't want to rule against Santa Claus because he's up for re-election. And so the defense lawyer, who's Santa's lawyer, calls up the kid, who happens to be in the audience with his wife, of the prosecutor. So the lawyer's kid for the prosecutor's side against Santa is called to the stand. And he says, and the guy says, "Do you believe in Santa?" And he says, "Oh, sure, he's right there." And he says, "Well, what does your daddy think?" The prosecutor. "Oh, my daddy tells me that Santa's real. And he would never lie to me, right, Daddy?" And so, the guy says, "Oh, no, of course I wouldn't lie." So that's how they kind of win. And it reminds me of Jennifer Psaki, who has 2 young kids. How does she stand up there every single day and lie her, professionally lie, and then go home and deal with her kids? So
I'll have to check out that movie. I mean, I've heard of it. It's a classic, but yeah,
it's very good.
So here's what happened, and this happened a little while ago. And Jennifer Psaki, or Psaki, however she says it,
I really don't know,
accidentally gave us all, I think, a lesson on MMT. And here's what happened. So let's backtrack a little bit, back to December.
I apologize to everyone for having you to see this person's face twice in a night. I guess the second clip of her is not going to be until the second part of the show, so we got a long time to get over and cleanse the palate. But I do apologize.
Where Jenn Psaki laughs at the idea of sending COVID tests to Americans. Something a bunch of other countries have figured out with no problem, by the way. A bunch of other countries, they've been doing this. Tests are everywhere. Tests are free, or if they cost anything, it's like $1. Tons of countries have figured this out. Up in Canada, if you go to the grocery store, sometimes they'll throw a COVID test in your grocery bag. England, they just send tests to people's houses. They send kids home with tests. And here, we have a testing crisis. It's very, very difficult to get one. You're waiting in line forever. Testing sites closed.
No, this is 2 weeks ago. I know a lot has changed since then, but it is 2 weeks ago.
On a whim, buying them in the store, the prices have gone up and up and up. And here is a segment from a little bit ago where she laughs at the idea of delivering them to people's homes, even though other countries figured this out with no problem. Here's this segment. It is very cringe, so I appreciate you visiting it again.
Always is.
Look at what we've done over the course of time. We've quadrupled the size of our testing plan. We've cut the cost significantly over the past few months, and this effort to ensure insurers you're able to get your tests refunded means 150 million Americans will be able to get free tests.
Okay, so why not just make them free and give them out and have them available everywhere?
Should we just send one to every American?
So she's being sarcastic. Should we just send one to every American? Even though other countries. Oh, by the way, when she's talking about the pricing and whatnot, what she's referring.
Legitimately laughs at it when it's like 20 countries are currently doing this. All these countries are way ahead of us doing this, and she's like, "What are we gonna do?" So yeah, no, we should be doing what everybody else is doing. Yes, we should try to catch up.
Is they were amidst an effort to get it down to about $12 a test, which again is still about 12 times as much as a bunch of other countries. It costs 80 cents to make them. So in other countries that actually have health care,
80 cents, really.
it costs 80 cents. So in other countries where public health is actually a priority, they're $1. If they're anything at all, most of the time they're free. If they cost something, maybe you need one at home and there's none on the way to you, it costs like $1. But anyway, so that's what she's referring to. That's her big accomplishment. And now they're asked, why don't you just send them to every American? She scoffs at the idea. Let's get through the rest of this.
Maybe.
Then what happens if every American has one test? How much does that cost? And then what happens after that?
All I know is that other countries seem to be making them available in greater quantities for less money.
Well, I think we share the same objective.
All right, and then she just bullshit. She's like, we share the same objective. No, we don't, Jen. No, we don't. Other governments, their objective is actually the public health of their people. Your objective is capitalism. So no, you do not share the same objective.
And they both believe in the same bogus map of economics. Neither one of them is saying you're wrong. They both assume that that's correct, that the cost is important.
Right. Well, she says like, oh, how much does it cost? How much does it cost? That's like a side. I mean, she makes it out like it's some unattainable thing that we can't possibly do because how much would that cost? How could we possibly afford it? Well,
right. Which is bad, but it's like it's even worse that news person, assuming they were good faith, that news person would challenge her on that. But no, they don't. They have the same map. They have the same map of the economy.
I disagree. I think, and I don't know who that news person was or what map they subscribe to, but that news person at least was like, well, other countries are doing it with no problem.
And again, we're doing this for a little while because I'm going to wait and see if a few more people jump on. I announced last night I was going to be doing this at 12:20. So we'll be doing the first big story at 12:20 and then Nancy around 12:30. But, MMT is important, and this is a monthly show, guys. So if you want to get back and check Ron Placone's his podcast or whatever and catch up on all of this, Jeff there does it every time with him, and they do a really great job discussing, going over all aspects and the evolving theory of MMT.
Right.
I mean, that news person was basically just like, yeah, other countries are doing this with no problem whatsoever. For some reason, we can't do what other countries are doing with no problem. So, let's be real here. To get into that press room, you have to not really push any buttons. And if you do, you're probably not going to be invited back into that press room. But, in that situation, I don't even know who that reporter is, to tell you the truth, but I gotta tip my hat to that for pointing out that obvious and not backing away from it.
Within that straitjacket, they pushed as hard as they could.
Exactly. Great analogy. Absolutely. But here's what has happened since then. Check this out. At-home COVID tests, where you can get them and when they will be free. Since then, all Americans will soon qualify for free at-home COVID tests. Now, I don't want to jump ahead too far here, but spoiler alert, there's not a happy ending.
Spoiler alert, those things are garbage. They test for I had somebody explain it to me, but essentially, if you take two of the type that he is showing right there, if you take two of them, there's a 70% chance that your results, if they match, are correct. So one of those are never enough for anything. And essentially these are the weakest type of test you could possibly do. And if you're really worried about traveling, if you're really worried about something, this is not what you want at all.
Screwing this up. But here's the MMT lesson. There was never an affordability issue. It was never an issue. What happened was Jenn Psaki stepped in it. And what happened after she stepped in it? It went viral. And a bunch of people started asking that question, why the hell can't we have this thing that Canada has with no problem, that England has with no problem, that a bunch of other countries, most of the EU, has with no problem? Why can't we frickin' have that? So all of a sudden, well, there's a program. At-home COVID test, this is from CNET from yesterday, I believe. At-home COVID test will soon be available free to anyone in the U.S. who wants one, according to the Biden administration. People with health insurance will have COVID-19 tests reimbursed starting January 15th, and the White House plans to deliver 500 million free COVID tests to people who request them.
More people than in the United States.
Right? So you can get more than one in some cases. All right, so they're finalizing the details. They're going to be working with the Postal Service. Now, here's the thing. Where can I get a home? Okay, so now it lists all the places that are selling home tests now. How do I get the free at-home test kits? The Biden administration is working on a website where people will be able to go to order test kits for free. Now, they don't even know exactly when. Here's the quote. Americans will start receiving free tests in the coming weeks. We will set up a free and easy system, including a new website to get these tests out to Americans. Now, several states have already started sending tests. So that's where we're at. Now, it's not necessarily like a happy-go-lucky ending because we're still amidst this. And what I've seen is that it's going to take months for this to actually unroll. So it's still going to be months until people are getting tests. But the point from an MMT perspective is never was affordability an issue. Never, ever was affordability an issue. And here's the other component to this, Jeff. I want to get through this, and then I want to bring you in and get your thoughts. Here's the other component. Simultaneously, or around the same time, when this was all going on, what else did our lovely, lovely federal government do? Well, they did this. They passed a compromised defense bill that was billions more than even Biden asked for. $768 billion defense policy. That passed. No one asked, how are we going to pay for it? That's billions more than they even asked for. Like every other defense bill in the history.
You got to keep spending, or else you can't keep giving it more to the government. I don't. Anyway, that number is currently double what the height of the Iraq War was. That their budget, the height of the Iraq War in 2006, 7 or whatever, that was the budget doubled. That we are currently not in a live active war. Our budget has doubled, and doubled. It's double, or it's like triple of what China and Russia combined is.
They never asked, how are we going to pay for it? Isn't that going to cost massive inflation? How are we going to afford it? Those questions are never asked when it's going to Wall Street or the Pentagon, baby. Because it ain't an issue. They create the currency, they give it to them. That's what they do 100% of the time. Wall Street, the Pentagon, they benefit from MMT. We, the people, we don't. So affordability in this case, never a freaking issue. It was never an issue. And the other big thing here is it's all a choice. You want to tell me that
the U.S. government writes blank checks? That's the point. The U.S. government, with the influence and power, writes blank checks, and it chooses where to write those blank checks. And it's always war, and it's always towards war.
A government that has the most powerful military in the world, that has unlimited resources pretty much, can't put together a frickin' website for people to order tests. You want to tell me that somehow they can't pull that off? I don't think so. I think it's a choice. It's a deliberate choice to bend over backwards for Wall Street and the Pentagon, but not the people. Why did they make that choice? Because an empire thrives on a desperate populace who is scared or just broken into submission to ever want more from their government. Jeff, your thoughts?
Oh, I have several. How do they pay for it? They pay for it with votes and with the signature of the president. So what they choose to vote for is what they can afford. That's what they're telling us. They choose to vote for military and more that they're requesting, not just more than Biden requested, but they're giving more to. In that article, it says they're giving more funding for specific projects that were never even asked for by that branch of the military, more particular plane and a particular, I believe, a tank or something. So they choose to vote for this. How can they afford it? Because they can vote. Because they choose to vote for it. Money is paid for at the national level with votes and the signature of the president. So that's how they can afford it, by choosing to vote for it. Psaki had COVID in November. Did you know that? She had COVID in November. So my cynical interpretation of how this is suddenly happening is, I don't know, but I think it's a reasonable speculation that it's starting to get out of control and it's starting to affect the rich. That's why suddenly they can afford it, because this is starting to get out of control.
Oh, you mean the test thing?
The tests are suddenly available in high quantity.
I had not thought of that. he looks at things from a very, he is very smart on one issue, and that's why he goes on these, goes on these shows and goes on these topics, because he's very, very smart on one issue, and that's what you call an expert, not a general paid for corporate stooge, somebody who learns something and constantly learns more about it.
Quantity, because it's starting to get out of control, which means it's starting to potentially affect the rich. That's why they suddenly can magically afford this now. That's my cynical.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and I think it's the thing I just said, that she stepped in it.
Okay,
that's a month ago when this happened, it went viral, and people started, because before then, I don't want to rehash like the past year and a half of like a pandemic and whatnot. That'd be like too depressing for either one of us. But it's like nobody was talking about the fact that we did not have testing available. Like no one was talking about that. No one was talking about the fact that, I would bring it up on this show, and like literally, if the only person bringing this up is a comedian in his freaking living room, we're in a whole heap of trouble. But hardly anyone was talking about that. All of a sudden, she steps in it in a press conference, and people are like, yeah, what the hell? So that, combined with things getting really out of control, yeah, there you go. Now, all of a sudden, affordability was never an issue. But take this as a snapshot, everybody. It's not an issue. These are choices. Your government does not have universal, we don't have universal health care in the United States, not because we can't, quote, afford it. It's a choice. It's a choice because you need a desperate populace to have their health care.
Like this is a topic that these two push, and it's fantastic because they write blank checks that they want to. They choose when to talk about budgets, and then the military lost $1.1 trillion every year for 20 years and lost it. That's not their budget. That's just what they lost. They lost $21 trillion. Like, come on.
Tied to their job, so they keep going to it. So they don't say, no, we're having a general strike. It's a choice.
And more than that is you can't afford to run for office. That's how I see it.
You can't afford to run for office. You can't afford to strike. You can't afford to. You can't afford to quit. You can't afford to
complain about even the most minor things.
That's how it goes, man. This is just you can look at every single chapter in human history. It follows the same formula. For an empire to be an empire, you need a desperate populace. There's never been like, hey, everyone's doing great, and everyone's happy, and everyone has a great quality of life. We're an empire because we just feel like it. No. An empire has really freaking rich and powerful people, and then really desperate people. And those desperate people keep it going.
The desperate people. Exactly. They have to threaten the poor people with hunger so that they labor for those rich people to feed their unending greed. That's what. Greed is what the greed is what's really underneath this. Speaking of what,
and they count on most of us to be complacent or too bogged down to do anything about it, and that's how they continue. Is the middle 50% of us are too bogged down and just too content, and then the bottom 25 are rather too bogged down or they're upset enough to fight. And that's the few people that get out there and actually protest, is that bottom 25% that actually have enough energy to fight. We need to get the middle 50% angry. That's what we need. Sorry, I just protest, strike.
So my final point, which I don't disagree with anything you said. She did step in it, but I think that's all of these things are contributors. This false map, this how can we afford it at the national context, is this. What I think is kind of underneath it is that people believe two things. Number one, that greed is good. Greed is paramount. Greed is what is most important to our society. But of course, only for those who got in first, because those on the bottom have to be their worker bees and be threatened with starvation. But in addition to that, it's impossible for someone else to be greedy unless you take it from me. Where we know, greed is okay with me, basically. My greed is okay, your greed is not. Because if you're greedy, it takes it from me, because there's a million of you, and you're going to have to take it from me in order to get health care, for example.
Let me add something real quick. Keep in mind, too, They don't call it green, right? They call it other things.
No, they've naturalized that level. So that's just any lower than that is disturbing the natural order of things. Their greed is minimum, minimum. That is the minimum allowable, that they are happy. If they go below that, then oh my gosh, they're in poverty, which means to us, they have a gold yacht instead of a platinum yacht,
Right. Well, I guess what I meant, and maybe I was kind of like, I agree with you 110% that like we have totally normalized greed and a certain amount is okay. But they never call it that. They call it like the entrepreneurial spirit or self-accountability.
Sure. What's it called when you use language to minimize something, like not innuendo, but we had a discussion, which means we had a blowout fight. That kind of language that you minimize things. I can't think of the term. There's a term.
There is a term for it, and I can't think of it either. Let's just go with bullshitting. I know that's not the one.
Sure, that'll work.
But that's the closest one I got right now. But yeah, like that's what they do. Because like, how old were you when you noticed that? By the way, as an aside, like when was it? When did you notice that? Like, because
Absolutely. We need to impose term limits, and we also need to basically, which is why I do this show now, we absolutely need to get rid of most of the incumbents. So I will be doing a clip on all the incumbents who are running for election or possibly running for something else. But yes, term limits is something so basic. Term limits and ending Citizens United could really freshen things up and help things out. But yeah, these guys in MMT is fantastic. Talking about, just the idea of MMT is that we could write a check for anything we have the resources for, and it essentially breaks down that with the unlimited power we have a resource-based economy, and then having a resource-based economy, you can start doing anything that you have the resources for without having to talk about budgetary needs. It's that simple, except that we write all of our resources away to corporate America, and we fight wars to give more resources to corporate power, and that's what we constantly do, and that's what our entire budget's for, and that's what our entire system's set up for, and it's an extraction of wealth from all of us to the military complex and those who own other things in that same system, which is why they can drop $40 million on people like both Dick Cheney and what's the other senator that got another $40 million check? McCain, who just passed. Both of them got $40 million from the war industry before they went in and did their politics for the rest of their life. So that's what we're fighting. That's what we're going against. And that's what we're constantly up against. Well, I want to do one more before we jump into Nancy and talk about the Queen Bee of can't believe she's going for re-election. That's just that announcement today. I literally started researching her like an hour before that was announced, and then as I'm researching her, it all starts popping up, and it, whew, man, that's a hard one to swallow. Not bubbly water. Not bubbly water. That one is. So, keep things moving. I wanted to do not such a visual, but this is absolutely a must. If you go through podcasts, you at least got 185 episodes. These two do a lot of topics, a lot of influential news for the moment, or a lot of influential news for years to come. So, give the podcast a look over, check them out. I wanted to give this 7-minute video a walking through. I checked it out earlier, and I'll try to minimally react and just kind of let this one go through for you guys. But and then you'll have to listen to me talk for a little bit, because we're gonna talk some Nancy Pelosi.
Folks, I didn't actually even realize this, but folks who are familiar with the topic might have known that starting on January 1st of this year, the USDA passed or started new labeling for genetically modified foods. And that sounds really good, right?
It does, because there's been a many years long fight to have GMOs labeled, to have some of them banned, to have them studied more, maybe see the actual impact on the human body or the body of our environment, if it can be called a body, the environmental body.
I think it can.
And there's been a long fight for that. So, yippee, we should be jumping in the aisles and celebrating.
I mean, no. Because yes, there's this snazzy looking little like green label that will be on some.
Or is it a leaf?
There is a leaf on there. So first of all, it makes it look very nice, right? It says bioengineered, and it's got a picture of what looks like a farm with a little sun, and it looks very quaint, right? Like, oh, bioengineered. You know, like how cozy, and let's all have a picnic in the green fields. And so basically, this is the new label that's going on foods that are bioengineered. ...
I love that they realize that people find the term bioengineered more favorable than GMO or genetically modified. Whereas engineered sounds like, oh, the very smart people worked on this.
Right, genetically modified sounds like something out of like a Batman story, right? Like you know,
it's more Mothra.
I don't.
Godzilla.
Okay.
You've heard of that, right?
Sure. Yeah, I've heard of Godzilla, not Mothra. Okay.
That was his great nemesis.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought his nemesis was tall buildings.
No, he likes the tall buildings.
I don't think he does.
He climbs up them. No, he's swinging at the helicopters that are shooting at
That's
him.
King Kong.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I guess Godzilla doesn't like tall buildings, does he?
I don't know that King Kong does either. He's just, you know, making use of his environment. Anyway, that fascinating analysis aside.
I think we need to stick on this for a while.
So, first of all, the label looks very cheery, which is also part of the misleading aspect, right? Because when you pick up something and you're in, I mean, unless you're really spending a lot of time staring at packaging, you see a green circle label and you think, oh, that looks good, right? And you don't really take the time to read that it says bioengineered or really even what that means.
It reminds me of Johnson & Johnson's asbestos baby powder, where it had a little happy dancing kid and it said asbestos. Now with more asbestos.
Cherry flavored. So that's the first problem. But then you might be thinking, okay, well, cool. So I guess if it doesn't have this bioengineered, lovely circular green label, it doesn't contain any bioengineered ingredients, right? No. So first off, the first loophole here, if one or more of the food ingredients come from a modified plant, but ingredients themselves contain no DNA from that plant, they can carry a quote-unquote derived from bioengineering disclosure. However, that's voluntary.
I love the idea of voluntarily telling people something that we think might decrease the amount of purchasing. How often do you think that'll happen? You know, we need you to tell people how many heavy metals are in your food there, your TV dinners, but it's voluntary. You know, just,
right? It's like when you it's like when you tell an oil company, well, we want you to let us know about any oil spills, but we're going to let you voluntarily let us know.
This actually, there was a policy that was adopted at the beginning of the Trump administration where the SEC chairman said we're going to have investment bankers voluntarily, alert us to any wrongdoing. And literally the quote from the SEC chair was, we start with the, assumption that your average investment bank wants to follow the rules and alert us to any wrongdoing.
Totally.
Great assumption.
Because after a cocaine-fueled night of partying and trading stocks, the first thing you do when you come out of, a stripper's asshole is that you notify the SEC that you've done wrong. Which has nothing to do with the stripper's asshole, by the way. Anyway, back to GMOs. The second loophole here. Starches, oils, and sweeteners made from bioengineered plants, but that are so highly processed that no actual bioengineered DNA remains, may not be labeled.
Interesting.
Especially if they fall under, get this, a 5% threshold for, quote, unintended presence of GMOs.
Oh, that's like
Unintended.
So it's like as long as your hot dog is less than 3% rat shit, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's unintentionally. It was an accident. We unintentionally.
We accidentally ended up with a little bit of tomato that's made out of fish scales in your carrots. What?
It gives them extra crunch though, so it's lovely. So the next loophole is that these new rules don't cover products that list meat, poultry, or eggs as their first ingredient or their second ingredient after water, stock, or broth.
Rules.
So many prepared foods, like that you find in the freezer aisle, like chicken burritos, can contain modified ingredients without disclosure because their first ingredient is meat.
What? Who cares? Who the fuck came up with these rules? They're absolutely meaningless.
Another loophole is for instance, milk from a cow that ate bioengineered feed is not considered a bioengineered food because it's down the food chain.
Of course.
So, and then of course, the kind of the crowning turd on this whole thing is enforcement, right? Which is always the question.
Let me guess, $15 fine. If they're caught ignoring labeling.
It's kind of like when there were stop work orders for pipelines. And I'm sorry I keep coming back to the pipeline and oil companies, but that's what I have a lot of experience with. There would be like a stop work order because they didn't have the right permits. Well, but who enforces that? And the oil company knows that nobody's going to fucking enforce it, even if there are activists who go out, see that people are working, and then call an agency to let them know. The agency's like, no, whatever, that's just you saying that.
Well, also the agency's like, I answer to, the government officials that oversee our agency, and they answer to the oil companies. So do you think we're going to really deal with this?
Right. So in terms of enforcement, basically the USDA is going to be responding to complaints. So there's no in-store spot checks of food products. There's no, third-party analysis of food products. That's standard. Everything is just based on complaints. So you would have to go out of your way to make a complaint. Then that gets reviewed and and then hopefully the USDA does something about it. But you can't be. It's not like it's definite that anything would even happen based on a complaint.
What if a bunch of cans of tuna jumped off the shelves and started organizing themselves into an escape from the store? Would someone be like, does that count as alerting authorities?
I'm all for it if we can organize something like that. But that's basically what it takes to address this GMO labeling. So while the headline looks sexy and awesome, GMO labeling, 2022, that again, we always have to look at the details and, in particular, the enforcement of this legislation, because I feel like that, in so many aspects, is really where it all falls apart. We can say that, hey, this law for everything from voting rights to climate justice to GMO foods. It looks good on paper, but if it's not enforced, who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter.
And yet again, we're in a situation where the idea of government might not be that awful. The idea that there should be an agency that looks into what's in our food and keeps it safe sounds like a good thing. But once you have it completely corrupted, once you have it completely owned by big ag, etc., then these rules mean less and less, and we get into a point where the agencies that decide whether our food is safe are borderline meaningless because they are whatever big ag wants, big ag gets, because they are our politicians. The amount of money in politics it dwarfs even what it was 10 years ago. And so all this stuff has been hollowed out like Swiss cheese, the safety precautions on our food and the safety precautions throughout our lives.
And now that Swiss cheese is GMO. So
now that Swiss cheese is made with a beaver's anal gland.
Delish. Speaking of a beaver's anal gland, something about Biden.
Something about Joe Biden.
So this is.
Ooh, that was a rough one. Thank you. Thank you, Eleanor, for that great transition. Epic transition right there. Ooh-wee. All right. One of my favorites, Lee Camp, Eleanor Garfield. They do a couple shows weekly, actually. They do Uncommon Censored. They do the more serious, and then they will do an interview. They will do just the two of them kind of chilling out and taking questions and maybe hitting a little more less serious and intense situations. But always worth to check out the Lee Camp and Eleanor Goldfield. But all right, let's lost everybody on that, so let's start again. Nancy Goldfield. Nancy Goldfield. All right. Nancy Pelosi. Still progressive. Nancy Pelosi. 12th District, San Francisco. The San Francisco Peninsula. 700,000 people in the town of San Francisco. 7 million people on the Bay Area. So she represents the town of San Francisco. And you can afford to live in San Francisco, we already got you as a moneymaker. But that is where she's at. The Honorable Nancy Pelosi. Super honorable. Super honorable. And if you want to check out her recent votes, you can check out the clerk's office for that. They always have things nicely and boringly, conveniently. I think we all know her voting history. We don't need to dig too far into Nancy Pelosi's voting history. It's pretty well known. Everybody hears what she has to say, and we all kind of know where she's coming from. As far as other history, Paul Pelosi, her husband, now he's, if anybody has any tertiary, non-mainstream media lookings, first thing everybody kind of looks at when they look at Pelosi is right up here, right up in that wonderful section there is going to be the net worth. With her $223,000 a year, her net worth is somehow 88 million on this one. I've seen several websites that were left-leaning that said 120 million at the moment, and then I saw some right-leaning sites, some Breitbart style sites that said that her husband is worth 315 million and didn't really attack her 100 million. But they that does have to question where exactly she lays at the actual wealth. And anybody typical with that much wealth is almost always hiding more than they're showing. That was the case with Romney. He had quite a lot of hiding. So I'm going to guess Pelosi has quite a lot of hiding as well. And she's the minority leader, so she serves on no committees. So that's at least one good thing. But we know that she pushes the votes, or she does not vote. What does she not vote on? On restricting online campaign ads. Huh. That's odd. She has no opinion on the online campaign ads. That's a surprise. Good for you, Nancy. She demands people, like she is so strategic. She doesn't even. I mean, she probably just has her team being strategic. She's a authority head at this time. She's a lifelonger. Like I said, her husband and her have been. He's been well off, and she's been in the business. I read a Wikipedia on it, and it was like her husband Paul pushed her into politics when he had built up his capital and his real estate businesses. But really, when you look at her life, her father was a very prominent Baltimore mayor and tried to run for governor, but got caught with allegations of massive corruption and had to step down, but still got the mayorship for 2 more years because that didn't hurt him enough. I guess he was well liked enough, but he was considered a bought and paid for politician even back then, and massive bribe allegations. So either way, Paul Pelosi has been tied to Microsoft. Microsoft buy right before it had a massive jump, according to a bill passed by his wife. Visa and Tesla had the same situations where he bought up and increased wealth by quite big folds, way better than market. And that is called insider trading, and it is illegal. Congratulations. So, yeah, she is a lifelong family politician, and she married somebody who had a mild amount of wealth, and they just both increased. And she has been doing this since 1987, when he pushed her into politics for the first time, and she won her very first election. So that's who she is. Even though her family's from Baltimore, she still won a election in California right off the bat. So that is Nancy Pelosi. Open secrets. I didn't even update this, and so her open secret starts back in '98. Like I said, her first elected seat was in '87. She has raised, I knew that was gonna be a fun one, $63 million and spent $54 million, which means she has $8.8 million cash on hand. So of course she has to run, even though she's 80 something and should just retire. And of course, being Nancy Pelosi, health services is a big contributor. That's just fantastic. University of California, no really, that's amazing. Silicon Valley, when you live in Silicon Valley, that's kind of expected, guys. I'm not, anybody paid for in the area is going to be that. A winery, I guarantee they get some favorable connections. I bet they get some favorable connections for water. Water is very scarce in the area, and Wells Fargo is the bank of the West Coast there, so they of course would give well to her. And top industries, health professions. I wonder why she's not for Medicare for all, when the health professions is one of her top industry. Democrat liberal, that's just usually a sly term for other Democrats giving her chunks of money, because she's given chunks of money to the Democratic. It's all just handshakes. And real estate, that's odd that real estate gave her a lot of money, because that's what her husband made his fortunes on, was real estate. So that's a little bit not surprising, knowing that she raised a lot of money in 2020. That's fun. That's kind of scary, how much money she raised in 2020. Why does she need to push so hard for a campaign? She have a close campaign when we don't know about? Did I not know about a close campaign? I don't think this poor lady has ever had. So 2020, she raised a massive amount of money and did not have necessarily a close campaign. So why do you need to raise buku bucks for pretty much blowout campaigns? That's why she gets the top seat. She pushes that envelope. All right, Yellow Wine, auto workers. So a lot of unions. Federation unions. So she gets money in the individuals from groups. She gets these bulk massive amounts of money from groups in Northern California. So like I said, her industries is the healthcare industry. That is number one. Real estate up out there, securities and investments. That means Silicon Valley, big banks, massive conglomerate real estate companies, lawyers, and Democratic PACs. So that's Nancy Pelosi. That's no surprise. And her net worth, she's gonna put it at 114 million, according to open secrets. Sorry, guys. So yeah, she's worth a little bit. 114 million, according to them. Again, with her husband having another massive wealth, and I just, yeah, she's well off. Good for her. It'd be super fantastic. She's only the 6th richest at that too. That's kind of gross. That's pretty gross. She is, yeah, she's corporate. I wish she would not ever run again, but she is running again. She's 80 some god years old, so you're you're probably a billionaire. You and your husband probably actually have $1 billion. You have some 300 to 500 million on paper, so you're probably a billionaire. Just disappear, please disappear. And you ask for people for donations to you gotta fight the Republicans. You gotta give us more money. You gotta fight the Republicans. I'm only worth 115 million, but you're worth 30,000 a year, so you gotta give money to me to help fight the Republicans. I hate her. So that's why we are going to attack. Let's attack now. Let's depallet Nancy Pelosi. So this is her at the United Nations Climate Change Summit here. A little while ago. When was this exactly? November 9th of 2021. This is absolutely beautiful. She is trying to call on a female journalist at this summit, and she calls on Abby Martin, a absolute powerhouse of her show is called The Empire Files. She's trying to take down the empire, which is the United States government and the corporations propping it up and surrounding it. And she calls on her. Oh, thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
Gender equality here. Maybe I don't.
Abby Martin with the Empire Files. Speaker Pelosi, you just presided over a large increase in the Pentagon budget. This Pentagon budget is already massive. The Pentagon is a larger polluter than 140 countries combined. How can we seriously talk about net zero if there is this bipartisan consensus to constantly expand this large contributor to climate change, which is exempt from these conferences? Military is exempt from climate talks.
Well, I just want to use an example if I can. You know, the sea level rise is an important part of, what's happening to the climate. And I'm not a defense person, but I've had so many talks with the Defense Department, with the Navy in particular, about how they have to respond to what's going on. So I really do think that there is no reason why what we're putting together, with Build Back Better and other things, can't respond to the Defense Department and have the same impact in terms of reducing emissions. And I do think that the Defense Department is very much aware of the fact that they have to play a major role, both from a strategic as well as, for the good of the world. So I don't see what we're doing in any way, or, increasing the defense budget as being something that's inconsistent with climate action. I really don't.
And may I just add that national security advisors all tell us that the climate crisis is a national security matter. It is, of course, a health matter for our children, the water they drink, the air they breathe, etc. It is a jobs issue between clean technologies being the future of our workforce and the training for all of that. It is a national security issue because of the all of the conditions that climate crisis produces. I won't go into all of them, but they do cause for migration, conflict over habitat and resources, and again, a security challenge globally, and then the fourth, of course, the moral issue that we need to pass on this planet to future generations in a responsible way. Now, recognizing what you said, we recognize that as well, and a big user of fuel. There have been many initiatives over time, more successful with more technology, to convert from fossil fuel to other sources of fuel to run the military, because it would make the biggest difference. Transportation, defense, these are two of the biggest, can make the biggest difference in all of that, and that is something.
So she acknowledges it would make a difference if we updated and changed things, but she does not ever say that, yes, it should be in this legislation right now. Yes, it should be getting addressed right now. She just says she understands that it's important. But thank you for not saying that, yeah, this should be absolutely in this bill, and we should start putting it into what we are trying to change for the future, and just instead of saying it's important, say, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it? But thank you for both of you trying to sidestep Abby's question. And thank you for Abby Martin. Abby Martin's a fantastic journalist. She actually does journalism. She doesn't do anchorage or talking points. Give her and the Empire Files absolute checkout. And yeah, we check them out every couple nights. So check that out. Thank you, Nancy. I was checking out Government Secrets today, and they had a couple-minute little thing on Nancy Pelosi while they were doing it. I heard it live. I checked it out a second time, and it's been a few hours, so let's check it out again. This is Government Secrets. They do a couple hidden CIA or hidden FBI or hidden American government takeover style gems every day, and or not every day, Jesus, once a week podcast. A lot of
things we can do. A lot of things we can do with that money.
Something to be proud about, you know what I mean? But Nancy Pelosi just said the Democratic Party stands with working Americans, or whatever she just said in one of her dumb speeches. She just sounds like she's always drunk.
She said like the Democratic Party has delivered to Americans as we promised. You're like, what the fuck?
What are you fucking talking about?
You know what's great about that clip is both right and left Democrats and Republicans across this country can come together to say, what the fuck are you talking about?
What are you? Yeah, I know. It's just people from diametrically opposed are like, what in the world are you talking about? Just like, we cover, just like, what you mean when the Supreme Court lifted the eviction moratorium? Is that when you guys came to help all Americans? Like, God, it's unbelievable how out of touch they are. It's unbelievable. Well, somebody wrote, Graham's Nancy Pelosi makes me laugh every damn time. Well, I'm glad that the citizens of the chat of this fine show.
That'll lighten things up a little bit. Always good to lighten things up a touch. And I want to finish out with, JImmy Dore from April 21st of 2021. You know, probably did it on his live cast on 420, so he's probably nice and stony. So let's check out his stony clip on Nancy Pelosi.
So during the pandemic, Nancy Pelosi, a 100 millionaire and the leader of the People's Party, the Workers' Party, went on the CBS Late Late Show with James Corden, and watch what she did.
We're here with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and we've asked her to share something from her home for a little Late Late Show and Tell. Speaker Pelosi, what have you found? What are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate.
Really?
Chocolate candy.
No, just keep in mind, most people in America have no idea how they're going to pay their rent. They're losing their health care. They don't have, they're in line at food banks. There's lines wrapping around stadiums so people can get food right now.
This is during lockdown. This is back during lockdown. Ugh.
They passed $4.2 trillion to the richest people in the country, did nothing for you, and now they're on vacation. And she thinks it's a good idea. This is how tone deaf, out of touch. She thinks it's a good idea to go on a late night talk show and goof around about how she's handling it, the quarantine. Oh my God. Let's watch.
Oh wow.
And this is something you can get through the mail.
Okay.
Run out. And shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the episode of Cribs I never knew I needed. Oh my. Wow.
Other people in our family look for some other flavors, but
people are lined up at food banks. This isn't the billionaire Trump.
How did she get reelected? How did she get reelected last time? This is during an election cycle, right? No. She would have got sworn in and, yeah, she would have got reelected in 2022. How did she get reelected after this? Come on, guys. Ugh. Share this out to anybody you know in California. This is ridiculous.
Doing this. This is the leader of the people. The People's House. The Workers' Party. So she thinks it's a good idea why people are lined up in mile-long lines to get $30 grocery bag full of food. She goes on national television and shows all the different ice creams. How she's enjoying this quarantine because she's got all these different ice creams in her $12,000 refrigerator. And she doesn't have a worry in the world. She's not worried about paying her bills or getting health care or getting food.
And I'm going to be taking out Frank Palone, guy from the last video who helped sidestep Abby Martin with Nancy. Since you helped sidestep Nancy tomorrow I'll be taking him down at 12:20. Another day off stream with tons of clips and a bit of effort put in because I have more time in the day. But yeah, Frank Palone's coming down. The guy that sidestepped too. He's
Anything.
You're going back to work.
Never side with this lady. Never side with her.
Going back to work.
All right.
There's a.
That's good enough there, I guess. But yeah, that's Nancy Pelosi. Just not a good person, and such a rich, detached bubble person. Her bubble personality, meaning that she's lived in a bubble, a political bubble, a rich bubble, an elitist bubble her whole life, has no concept of what we are going through, and should not be a representative of anybody, let alone San Francisco, which might be mostly rich people living there, but she's still not a representative even of the rich people in her own district. That's where she is at. That is who she is, and that is why we should be moving on. All right, got through it. All right. So with that, I am going to move on to the Republican candidate for the night, and in doing so, I need to go through and set that all up. So we are going to check out. I have a video loaded up. It is going to play into something that I saw today. So a little something from the past while I set things up, and then we'll get back to some recent news, and then our right-wing progressive, or our right-wing conservative takedown of the day after we took down our. No one's going to say Nancy Pelosi's a progressive, right? I mean, she's barely. I mean, she's a centrist, right? Like we all know that. Like I don't. If somebody's saying otherwise, we do know that she is a centrist folk show, and she is not a progressive. So I really hope everybody knows that. And while I get everything set up on the other stream, on the other camera view, I am going to play this. So this is a segment from the Zeitgeist movie. Absolutely my favorite documentary. And I'm going to play this clip while I set things up, guys. Oh well. I guess maybe I'll play this clip. I shouldn't have not spoke so soon. I have had a hard time playing certain clips here and there. Okay. We will go right on to this. Sometimes during the live stream, it will not take me there. All right. So there was a status quo about the same topic that I was going to lead into. And we'll see if this video will load. It's on Rockfin. Rockfin was the channel we've seen earlier today. And better than watching certain things, you got to catch them on. So the uncensoring, which might have just happened. I get throttled a lot when I try to watch something I'm not supposed to.
In my documentary, American Anthrax, I show how two neocons, one of them Richard Pearl, who worked in the Office of Special Planning for the Pentagon under Rumsfeld, actually goes on TV on the 18th and says that he doesn't think that any of this airline security is going to work because while he's still working in the Bush administration, he says that because the next attack will be biological. And that's, how did he get it so right? Another neocon named Donald Kagan, who happens to be the father of Fred and Robert Kagan, some of your listeners may know about, actually says on 9/12 on a radio interview, he says, what would have happened if the terrorists had anthrax on this plane? It wouldn't have just been this like plane crash and like hijacking. Like the next attack could be anthrax, and there's no way that anyone could stop it.
And can you kind of tell the audience a little bit more, because this was in your documentary, a very heavy agenda? Like, Bill Kristol is a lot more well-known, I think, as a neocon, but Robert Kagan was his own special form of evil.
Oh yeah, Robert Kagan, sort of, I see them almost kind of like the yin and yang of a particular neocon media strategy, where Bill Kristol was sort of like, the celebrity, the hobnobber guy, who would be the public face. He'd go on television. He'd have go out there. People recognize maybe his household name, but basically spreading the same ideas as sort of this other guy, Robert Kagan, who was just as influential and just as pivotal in sort of the 90s, Clinton era neocon movement as he was. But Robert Kagan's interesting in the sense that he doesn't come from a family of neocon academics necessarily. He comes from a family of like military historians, and he even comes from the Office of Information, which is the propaganda arm of the State Department from the Reagan era. Bill Kristol, the only government job he had was like he was like a Dan Quayle staffer. I say that while shrugging my shoulders and rolling my eyes, but like I'm sure he had some pull there too. But it's like Robert Kagan and his family, they're military historians. They're so influential in government that they actually were asked by the Obama administration to come in there and shadow betray us in Afghanistan while being in the private sector. Like just suit and tie think tankers sitting next to Petraeus in a desk by his side in Afghanistan, basically feeding him talking points and military strategy. I mean, that's what happened in Afghanistan. That's probably how we got in the situation we got into, but that's how influential the Kagan family is.
Right. I want to move forward on the anthrax because whether it was Jerome Howard, who Rudy Giuliani appointed in 1996 to the Office of Emergency Management in New York City. That office, by the way, was in Building 7. They had their own water supply, heavily, I don't know what the word is, I mean, bomb-resistant walls around, things like that. But just so happened on 9/11, the second and third floor, where this Office of Emergency Management was cleared out before that building crumbled, just so happens. But I want to move forward because Time Magazine, soon after 9/11, comes out with a piece, not very specific, but essentially talking about how some of the 9/11 hijackers were or may have attempted to rent crop dusters under the assumption that they were trying to release through the crop dusters, which are, the agricultural airplanes, drop pesticides and other things for agriculture, under the suggestion, I guess, that they were trying to use crop dusters to spread anthrax.
That's one of the really fascinating things about this is the first time you started to actually hear the words anthrax, I believe, like floating around the media was that crop duster story. And it wasn't just like inserted by the Bush administration just as a pure fear-mongering thing. The most fascinating thing about it is there is plenty of evidence and eyewitness accounts of the hijackers actually attempting to rent crop dusters, which is odd. Even previous to 9/11, a doctor in Florida, I believe in Fort Lauderdale, was talking to the FBI later, and he says, I could have sworn that when I treated one of these hijackers in the hospital here before 9/11, it looked like he had an anthrax infection on his leg. I mean, why would a doctor just randomly say that? So there are some odd connections here, but yet the anthrax came from within the U.S. government. We already know, there's no disputing that. It has all the telltale forensic signs of coming from a U.S. government lab. So what are they saying? So what happened? I mean, how could the hijackers have been planning to do this allegedly and then just decided not to do it? But then, at first, the Bush administration doesn't even say it's terrorism. The whole thing just gets so convoluted and weird, Jordan. It really does almost seem to become this like ball of yarn that you just keep pulling from that you can never quite get to the center of, because even if you're looking at Florida alone, that's where the first anthrax victim died, Robert Stevens. We don't even really know how he got anthrax. We have heard that a letter might have landed in his lap and then he may have opened it and for some reason put his face into it and breathed into it, even though allegedly he was a germaphobe. I don't know what kind of germaphobe would start, inhaling random white powder they get from a letter from a stranger to their place of work. But at that same building, Jordan, the editor of that newspaper, the editor's wife of that newspaper, the first anthrax victim who worked there, Robert Stevens, the editor's wife rented an apartment to two of the hijackers. I mean, what kind of strange coincidence is that? The editor of the newspaper actually flew and took pilot's lessons at the same airfield that the hijackers were trained at. There's an awful lot of weird overlap here that doesn't quite make sense. And there's also an eyewitness account from someone from the USDA. I didn't even think I put this in my podcast, where she's talking about how Muhammad Atta came in asking for a government loan to rent crop dusters. And while he was in her office asking the government for a government grant to rent crop dusters, he then turns to threatening to kill her and slit her throat behind her desk. So, I mean, these apparently were real accounts. People interact with the hijackers. Even Muhammad Atta tried to sneak into the cockpit of a crop duster and take off with it without permission in an airfield. That doesn't seem like the behavior of the mastermind of one of the most sophisticated terror attacks of all time, does it? I mean, who?
Right? Oh, so base. So base. All right, that was freaking. So that was supposed to be the second clip, and we'll take it as the first. But fantastic little interview there that was only on Rockfin, and I guess Rockfin does not play very smoothly on YouTube. Go figure. They do not like their competition. I maybe even said the name there and got myself blocked. But yeah, don't try to play a movie that they allow you to play on YouTube. Don't try to play a clip from Rockfin on YouTube. Good to know. Sorry for that sketchy video package. But we are back on a good platform. And like I said, I want to set tonight up and start out with some Jenn Psaki. I don't think that's how I said it. And now listening to those two, that's what I'm thinking. Man, they got me. This is a live reaction. I want to watch, just wanted to watch a little bit. I usually can only handle a few minutes of her anyway, and I did not watch her today. Did not even think about her. I was watching so many other good streams. She is not a top-notch stream, but we have to at least watch through the hot mic question, because that seemed like a pretty good argument today.
I just have one item. Welcome, MJ. I think, well, I know you've been here before, but first time since I've been here. Okay. One item for all of you at the top. Last night, President Biden spoke by phone with New York City Mayor Eric Adams to express his deepest condolences over the tragic shootings last Friday of 2 New York Police Department officers, including one fatally. President Biden reiterated his admiration for the brave men and women of law enforcement who risk their lives on a daily basis to protect our communities, including the deputy killed in Houston and the officer wounded in Washington, D.C. And he expressed his firm support for Mayor Adams' efforts to combat gun violence and violent crime. During the call, the president also reiterated his commitment to serve as a strong federal partner for New York City and other communities grappling with the increasing gun crime we've seen over the past 2 years. He discussed the steps his administration has taken to combat gun violence, including by providing cities and states with historic levels of funding through the Rescue Plan to invest in fighting crime, by putting more cops on the beat, and supporting community anti-violence programs, as well as through stepped-up federal law enforcement efforts such as gun trafficking strike forces the Department of Justice has established in New York City and other major cities around the country. Since their announcement last summer, those strike forces have already opened over 350 investigations nationally and have taken over 2,000 guns off of the street.
Maybe they can hire somebody that talks like their boss. That would be pretty fun. Like, kind of rambly and off center and not remembering the quite right phrase, like he's super old and shouldn't be on a stage anymore. Like if she spoke more like him, maybe it would feel more connected, more right.
Streets. With that, Josh, why don't we start with you?
Well, thanks, Jenn. Ukraine's government is telling its people that a Russian invasion is not imminent. Their defense minister said, "Don't worry, sleep well, no need to have your bags packed." Does the U.S. agree with that assessment, that an invasion is not imminent?
Well, no one can get into the mind of President Putin or Russian leadership. We all know that is the case. What we have seen is a range of preparations, including 100,000 troops at the border, bellicose rhetoric, and actions, as we've talked about in here, including false flag.
There was a interview that I did yesterday with Aramate and a Russian, and he literally was saying there's 60,000 always there. There is new facilities for 40,000, but there's not actually 40,000 troops there. They actually haven't moved any troops. And the Russian people are kind of laughing at us right now because this is Western propaganda.
Operations to try to spread misinformation throughout the region and even the world, setting up the predicate for an invasion. So while, of course, our preferred path is diplomacy and we can't predict where the mind of President Putin is, we've certainly seen aggressive actions and preparations increasing at the border.
And then secondly, the FDA yesterday withdrew the EUA for some monoclonal antibody treatments because they don't work against Omicron. But Florida continues to push for the treatment for people in the state. What's your response to Governor DeSantis, and what's your message to the people of Florida?
Well, let's just take a step back here just to realize how crazy this is a little bit. We've approached COVID treatments like filling a medicine cabinet. We're not relying on one type, one brand, or treatment. We invested in and continue to buy a variety across monoclonal antibodies, pre-exposure prevention therapies, and oral antivirals. We have provided 71,000 doses of antivirals to Florida, including 34,000 additional treatments that do work against Omicron just this last week. I'm sorry, about a range of those treatments, I should say, to be clear. What the FDA is making clear is that these treatments, the ones that they are fighting over, that the governor is fighting over, do not work against Omicron, and they have side effects. That is what the scientists are saying. We have sent them 71,000 doses of treatments that are effective against Omicron and are effective also against Delta. And they are still advocating for treatments that don't work. We've seen, unfortunately, from the beginning, in our pandemic response, a range of steps or pushes that have been made through social media platforms, unfortunately from the mouths of elected officials, and the advocating for things that don't work, even when we know things do work. Injecting disinfectant, promoting other pseudoscience, sowing doubt on the effectiveness of vaccines and boosters, and now promoting treatments that don't work. We know it works, vaccines and boosters. We have a range of doses of things that do work in treatments, and we're providing those to Florida. Go ahead.
Jenn, the president said last night that there is total unanimity with all the European leaders on Russia. How can he say that when Germany, for example, has been...
All right, last time she did a stream, I kind of skipped over it because we went right to Biden because all the questions were Russia and Ukraine. Like, they are told to go in and please build the narrative.
So outspoken against even providing arms to Ukraine.
Well, I think what the president is speaking to is a united agreement among our NATO partners, including Germany, about the fact that there will be severe consequences, severe economic consequences, should they invade. As our National Security Advisor and our Secretary of State have said, that doesn't happen, that unity doesn't happen on its own. It's required a lot of work. It also means that actions may not be identical, but we will be unified and they will be strong and severe. I'll also note that the Germans, and we expect the Chancellor to come here in February, and hopefully we'll have more specifics on that soon, has also been vocal about this and about the severity of response that would take place should Russia invade.
And how is the U.S. Currently assessing the risk of a Russian cyber attack on the U.S. homeland, and what is it doing to prepare for it?
I don't have any intelligence that I'm going to read out from here, as I don't think you would certainly expect. Obviously, we're focused right now on...
That's a stupid question. That's a dumb question. Why are you asking stupid questions? Oh, but in the nice, intelligent way. Thank you.
On Russia's intentions as it relates to military invasion on the ground and other steps they've taken, pushing propaganda, false flag operations that we've spoken about quite vocally from here. Broadly, we are always preparing for any action that related to cyber or any other activity that any country could take, but I don't have a prediction about that at this point in time, nor is that something that our national security team has assessed that I'm aware of.
And do you think we can expect that the president will?
You can expect the president will say something and she'll say something else tomorrow. Boom. Sorry, is that too basic? Too called for? Too needed?
Speak with President Putin anytime soon again?
He's always been open to engaging at a leader-to-leader level. He knows how effective that is. He's obviously spoken with President Putin directly and candidly a number of times, including in person. I don't have anything to predict at this point in time. He's meeting with his national security team on a daily basis, getting updates, and if that assessment is made, a recommendation is made, we'll let you all know. Go ahead.
As it relates to the 8,500 American troops who have been...
Come on, you just want somebody to ask it. I know they're gonna. I saw the clip. Just ask about the hot mic.
...at a high state of readiness in preparation to whether as the President or as the White House heard from our allies, NATO allies, about the expectation or desire for any unilateral American troops to go to that region.
Well, the announcement was made, as you know, Peter, to be a part of a NATO force, right? And so all of these consultations that have been happening over the last several days with our European partners and NATO partners has been about that. 8,500 service members, troops who are at the ready. And the decision about whether they would be deployed would be made in coordination with our NATO partners and allies, including any additional discussions or requests outside of that. I would point you to the Pentagon. I don't have anything to assess for you.
There's no, to the best of your knowledge right now, it's the President's intention to work exclusively via NATO, not send any troops unilaterally in any form.
Well, again, we're working through NATO to plus up support in our eastern flank countries. That is what NATO is there for, and we're committed to the sanctity of that alliance. Just to be clear, there is no intention or interest or desire by the President to send troops to Ukraine. NATO is a forum to support our eastern flank partners and countries, and that's what the focus has been on.
Given the changed state of readiness for that 8,500 troops that could go as part of this response force in conjunction with NATO, when should we expect to hear from the President of the United States about the situation as it relates to Russia and Ukraine in the form of some public remarks to Americans about whatever sacrifices that might take in terms of the U.S. men and women going there and the like, and anything beyond that?
Well, I don't have anything to predict in terms of a public speech. Obviously, he gave a 2-hour press conference just a few days ago where he answered a number of questions on Russia and Ukraine, and will continue to do that. But right now, a lot of our focus and his focus is on diplomacy, is on engaging with leaders, is on having conversations with members of his national security team.
Very quickly, the French president obviously has expressed a desire for the EU to be working sort of as the leader on this, as opposed to NATO leading the charges. The relationship goes to Russia, negotiations go. Would the U.S. be comfortable with the EU leading those direct conversations as opposed to NATO being the lead?
Well, there are a range of formats and forums that have been ongoing, right? Including conversations through NATO, including conversations through the OSCE. I know that there are conversations that are happening through the Normandy format that are happening today in Paris, and we certainly support international efforts that take place in a range of forums. Obviously, NATO is a forum that we work with and coordinate with our partners as it relates to military support and how we're going to provide assurances to eastern flank countries, so that's certainly the appropriate forum for that. But again, there's a range of forums to discuss de-escalation, negotiation, including in the Normandy format that's taking place today. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jenn. A question about immigration.
Sure.
Why is it that large numbers of single adult men are being released into the United States just hours after being apprehended at the southern border?
Well,
okay, can I find out what he's from? Because that's that sounds like bullshit. That sounds like some Statistical maneuvering bullshit.
I'm not sure the specifics of what you're referring to, Peter. What I can tell you in terms of what our policy is and how we're approaching the border is that we continue to be under Title 42. Migrants who cannot be expelled under Title 42 are placed into immigration proceedings, and one of those avenues could be placement in an alternative to detention program in the interior of the United States. Sometimes that means moving migrants to other parts of the United States to move to different detention facilities where they wait for next steps in the immigration process, such as a court hearing, and are required to check into the local ICE office. So that is certainly something that is happening out there in the country and is consistent with our policy.
And you mentioned that they're supposed to check in at a local ICE office, but we know that just between March and August, which is a very small sample size, DHS says more than 47,000 of these migrants that were given notices to report did not show up. So why let them into the U.S. unsupervised in the first place?
Well, again, we have a stringent protocols and processes that we implement here. That includes expelling individuals who come in under Title 42, given we are still in a global pandemic, and includes those who do not show up will be subject to the repercussions of that. So that is the policy we're implementing from our Homeland Security Department.
Okay. On Ukraine, President Biden met with Putin in person in June in Geneva, and afterwards he came out and said that the two...
Dude, you had to ask that kind of stupid, like, completely nobody knows what facts you're talking about questions, and then you still had to bring it back to Ukraine. Just,
Them arrived at a conclusion. He said, it's clearly not in anybody's interest, your countries or mine, for us to be in a situation where we're in a new Cold War, and I truly believe he thinks that he understands that. Has the president changed his opinion about what Putin thinks?
How are you suggesting we're in a new Cold War?
I'm just asking, it seems like the president thought in June that things were going to be good. And right now, things are not looking good.
I don't actually think that's at all what the president said. He gave an extensive press conference where he conveyed it wouldn't happen overnight and that there was work that we could do together. And that is something that's how you approach a diplomatic relationship. You are vocal, there are consequences when you disagree and when you have strong concerns, and you've seen us implement those. You still look for places and areas where you can work together. That remains how we're working with Russia.
Okay, there's a BuzzFeed report now suggesting that the Ukrainian government is upset the U.S. pulled citizens out of Ukraine before many other countries did. And this report says that a source close to the Ukrainian president thinks those Americans are safer in Kyiv than in Los Angeles. What do you think of that?
Well, we're always going to make decisions that are in the security interests of people who are serving as diplomats around the world. And we have assessments that are made by the State Department, hence the decision and the announcement made over the last couple of days, and the fact that we put in a level 4 advisory back in October, conveying very clearly to Americans they should leave Ukraine. Look, I will let others assess, but there are 100,000 troops, Russian troops, on the border of Ukraine, and no clarity that the leader of Russia doesn't intend to invade. That sounds pretty dangerous to me. I would also say that the Ukrainian leaders have welcomed the security assistance, and they've even met us at the airport that we have been providing over the course of the last several days. So that seems to be contradicting that assessment.
Okay, and the last one, the Secretary of State a few days ago tweeted, I #stand with Ukraine. Has that ever worked at stopping an authoritarian regime from doing anything?
I would have to say that unlike the last administration, we don't think Twitter is the only means of engaging or negotiating or discussing important topics. But it is important for us to convey to the Ukrainian people who do view commentary through a range of forums. I don't know how many are Fox News watchers, maybe some of them.
Oh my God. Yeah, this guy has to be Fox, first of all. And second of all, when's the hot mic question? Talking to this Fox guy forever.
And including social media, that we stand with them, we support them. And that includes in their efforts to protect the sovereignty of their country. Go ahead.
You mentioned the visit of the
Yeah. Not yet. Hopefully we'll have one soon.
And then pivot back to Russia. The U.S. is in talks with other countries to deal with potential shortages in gas and supplies. Can you speak to that a little bit, and in particular, what requests you've made of Qatar and whether they have responded but whether they would be able to step in and fill any shortfall should that happen in the case of
Sure. So it's our approach is not about any one country or any individual entity. We're engaging with a range of countries and partners to discuss what could be shortages. So I'm not going to get into any specifics of what any conversations entail. They can certainly speak for themselves. But what I can give you an update on is that a disruption, of course, in physical energy supplies transiting Ukraine would most acutely affect natural gas markets in Europe. And so we're engaging our European allies to coordinate response planning, including how to deploy their existing energy stockpiles. That's part of it. But we've also been working to identify additional volumes of non-Russian natural gas from North Africa and the Middle East, Asia, and the United States. We're in discussion with major natural gas producers around the globe to understand their capacity and willingness to temporarily surge natural gas output and to allocate these volumes to European buyers. And we're also engaging with major buyers and suppliers of LNG to ensure flexibility in existing contracts and storage is managed and enables diversion to Europe. So we are, of course, preparing, as we are in a lot of other areas, a range of contingencies should there be a disruption for a range of reasons to natural gas. I would also note that natural gas markets are very regional by nature, given constraints on how much can be exported. So any reduction in
we make enough natural gas to handle all of our needs, all of them.
Russian exports of natural gas to Europe would have a minimal impact on U.S. prices. That's what our anticipation would be.
Sort of, specifically, there's a belief that they sort of allocated production right now, which is running at more or less full capacity to Asia. Have you had any feedback from that country specifically?
I'm just not going to speak for any individual country or any individual diplomatic conversations at this point in time. That's why I said that it's not based on our approach or strategy is not based on one individual country or entity. It's a broad approach that includes engagement with Europeans as well as suppliers in North Africa, Middle East, Asia, and in the U.S.
Broadly, can you say, last week was when the administration began to sort of ratchet up warnings that an invasion could happen at any time. This week, can you say how, if at all, the president's view has changed about the risk? Is it the same? Is it getting worse?
I think when we said it was imminent, it remains imminent. But again, we can't make a prediction of what decision President Putin will make. We're still engaged in diplomatic discussions and negotiations.
No element of the last week has changed the president's view one way or the other.
Well, imminent has a pretty intense meaning, doesn't it? Okay.
It's still a belief that
correct. Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Jen, the Kremlin is using the U.S. announcement of putting 8,500 troops on alert to say that it's the U.S. that is fueling this conflict.
There you go.
The White House's reaction to that?
Well, I would say that our commitment to our NATO partners and allies is ironclad. If you go back to 9/11, the first time that Article 5 was invoked, it was in defense of the United States. And we take our commitment to our Eastern Flank partners, NATO allies, very seriously. But what is important to note is that the aggressive behavior here is on the part of the Russians. This is a defensive alliance, not an offensive alliance. And what we're doing...
Because Russia has 900 bases in the Middle East, Asia, and Europe, and Africa. But yeah, 900 bases. That's not Russia. That is the U.S.
Here is not making a decision, as has been clear by NATO partners and by the President and our members of our national security team to deploy, but just to be ready. And we have a responsibility to do that so that people who might be deployed can tell their family members. It's a shorter period of time, and to be ready to deliver on our commitment to our NATO partners.
Clarify, are those 8,500 troops who are now at the ready, as you said, are they already based in Europe?
Europe and the United States.
Europe and the United States. Mm-hmm. And did NATO request that the U.S. put them on the ready, or is that a U.S. call?
It's a conversation with NATO, so a collaborative discussion.
And a follow-up on Peter's question about Ukraine, are there direct contacts with Ukraine right now to allay their concerns that the U.S. was acting preemptively or too early, too soon to take personnel out of the country?
We are in constant contact with the Ukrainians to reiterate our support, to convey.
Again, I didn't want to talk about Ukraine this whole time. I wanted to get to the hot mic question. But I don't know if anybody knows where that is. That'd be great, because we're just gonna keep talking about the same thing.
Updates on shipments of supplies.
I get why they get aggravated. These shit reporters, barely reporters, half-assed journalists do not ask good questions.
Military equipment, something that's been happening over the last several days. Our National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, has spoken with his counterpart at least 8 times over the past few weeks, and U.S. officials at the State Department, Defense Department, across our government continue to work in close coordination on a daily basis with Ukrainian officials. Secretary Blinken, as you know, was in Ukraine last week, and he called his Ukrainian counterpart to read out his meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. So we have been in constant and close contact with Ukrainians leaders at a range of levels, as well as with our European partners.
Lastly, Senator McConnell gave you some unusual praise to the White House today about its preparations for Ukraine, saying that it looked like the White House was prepared to act before an incursion and not after. Do you know what steps he was referring to there, or is that just the troop deployment? And B, were you pleased to hear some positive words from Senator McConnell?
Well, yes, of course we were. I mean, look, I think abiding by our Article 5 commitments, standing up for the territorial sovereignty of Ukraine, making clear that one country should not be able to invade and take over territory from another country. That's not just a Democratic belief or a Republican belief. That's central to who we are as a country, and who leaders like Leader McConnell, Senator McConnell, like President Biden, have. That's what their belief has been for many decades. So we certainly welcome that. I would note there was a bipartisan delegation. We have had it all.
Bipartisan, you know what that means? They're screwing us. Because they never agree on something if it's actually going to help us.
Done a lot of briefings from leaders in the administration with Hill leaders. Those will continue as well. And
good God, did the White House actually edit out the freaking hot mic question? Or is it the last one and then she walks off or something? Because that would just be fantastic. Continue.
The second part, what was he referring to? I certainly would point you to him. I would say that we obviously have taken a number of steps in recent weeks, including very close coordination, more than 100 engagements with European partners, staying in close contact with the Ukrainians, obviously taking steps including sanctions last week, making clear that we are going to have troops at the ready to support NATO efforts. So I would point you to him, but we have been taking and even noting false flag operations and kind of calling out propaganda, but I would point you to him or his team on any specifics he was referring to. Go ahead.
Republican lawmakers in Florida are advancing a bill that would bar the state from doing business with companies that transport undocumented migrants into the state. Does the White House have a response to this legislation?
I am not familiar with the specifics of the legislation. I can check with our team and see. Go ahead.
Damn, you only have one
Reporter can't be in the room today. His name is Pablo Manriquez, the outlet is called Futuro Media, and he asks, what unilateral authority is the president willing to exercise for immigrant relief that has not been tried yet?
For immigration reform or relief, or, well, I would say we're going to have to keep trying some of the measures that we have been working on to date. You know, the president put forward, proposed an immigration bill, a comprehensive immigration bill on his first day in office.
We still got people in cages because we built them first. Then we blamed Trump, and that was the worst.
We've obviously continued to work with leaders in the Senate to try to push that forward, including trying to work to have components included in the president's Build Back Better agenda. We're going to continue to work to not only...
That's because, you know, Obama and Biden built those cages, got them ready for all the detained people. Trump filled them up pretty nicely, and we're just slamming them on through. Just keep on doing it.
Instill and implement safer security measures, but also more humane measures with how people are treated, how children are treated. And we're also going to work, continue to work and redouble our efforts to address root causes. So we're going to continue to approach this from many fronts.
Pablo also asks, is the president willing to reallocate unused green cards and apply them to immigrants waiting in decades-long green card backlogs?
Well, we have reform to the system. Green card system is certainly something that we've talked about as a part of immigration reform. I can check and see if there's anything we can do unilaterally on that front.
Back on Ukraine and Russia, can you give us a status report on the written response to Moscow? When can we expect it, and will it be made public?
Sure. I don't have an exact timing update. Of course, that would be led by our Secretary of State and our diplomatic team who have been closely engaging in these efforts. In terms of whether or not it will be public, I would note that typically it's not. Typically, paper that is part of negotiations or discussions, if you look at the Iran nuclear deal or you look at any treaty, not that this is a treaty, but just as a point of comparison, negotiations or discussions is typically not made public. It's a part of the diplomatic process and has been used by our diplomats for many decades.
Is the president involved in the crafting of the response?
The president certainly engages, is briefed by, and approves every component of our response and our efforts in this process.
For me, one of the criticisms that some fellow Democrats have been voicing in the press recently is that the president has surrounded himself with a corps of loyal aides who've been with him for many years, and increasingly these Democrats publicly saying that these aides have left the president ill-served. Are you aware of a response from the president to those criticisms?
In terms of what?
Well, the Democrat senator quoted today in the newspaper that said that sometimes boxcars are empty.
In terms of what? Oh, that was so freaking great. Oh man, she's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm sorry I dropped that F-bomb, but that was just,
Yeah. You know that
what you mean?
I didn't really even understand that quote, just to be honest. But here's what I would say, and I think I know what you're getting at, Steve, so let me try to answer your question. I am new to President Biden's orbit. I've only been working for him since I joined the administration during the transition and then joined in this role here that I'm still in today. What I have found is that I see him on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. He asks me consistently what I think, and by the people who have been surrounding him for some time, whether that's Ron Klain or Steve Ricchetti or others, they've certainly encouraged and supported that relationship and engagement. What I've seen the president do, and I know this isn't what everybody has visibility into, so I guess that's why I'm sharing this level of detail, is if you're in a meeting with him and you're having a conversation, if you don't know the answer or he wants more information, he picks up the phone and he calls the person he thinks does. Sometimes that's Ron Klain, sometimes that's Susan Rice, sometimes it's Brian Deese, sometimes it's Louisa Terrell. That's how the president operates, and that effort to really empower team members and have that direct relationship with the president is something that that's been my experience to date. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jenn. Just back to your comment about the White House already has held.
Yeah.
Can you confirm the White House is holding 2 classified briefings?
Yeah, sure. And let me give you a little bit more detail on that, because I think I have that here too. So these briefings are led, of course, by the State Department and Defense Departments, but today we are providing 2 additional classified bipartisan briefings for House and Senate leadership and committee staff. They'll be providing...
Thank you so much for asking a question that she had all lined up and ready. We like those people because we ask them at the appropriate time, like towards the end, when we know what we want to say. They do that setup at the beginning too, when they knock out like 2 or 3 things, hoping that other people won't ask because we already said it. We're going to shoot you down. Didn't work so much, but never does.
Updates on recent developments with Ukraine and Russia and the state of play. We're also working on all members briefings for the House and the Senate in the coming days. In the last week alone, Secretary Blinken and Deputy Secretary Sherman have spoken to nearly 20 members with additional engagements planned this week. And since December, we have had dozens of engagements with Congress on Ukraine and Russia, including 2 by President Biden, including one on December 7th with the Big Four, a January 19th virtual meeting with CODEL members, 6 briefings from National Security Advisor Sullivan to bipartisan members of the House and Senate, including leadership and National Security Committee chairs and ranking members, 9 interagency briefings for bipartisan members of national security committees, 8 interagency briefings for bipartisan Hill staff, including leadership committee and personal
5 golden rings.
Staff, and of course an open hearing that Toria Newland participated in back in December. So this is an ongoing process, and we will continue to provide regular briefings, some classified, some not, moving forward.
Oh, go ahead. Is there any updates on the federal website for testing you can give us on how many tests went out or how many were requested?
Sure, I certainly understand the question. There has been a great deal of interest. I don't have an exact number. I know that's something we will be putting out. Let me check on the status of that. I know I've got to wrap this up, so let me just quickly try to get to as many as I can.
I also wanted to ask about the testing. Do you know at this point how many of the tests that you've already ordered have come in yet? I don't mean going out to the American people, but are in your stockpile. And also when you'll be signing contracts for the other.
For the additional 500 million? Let me check on both of those questions for you.
I wanted to ask you about yesterday when you were talking about the competition executive order. You were saying about how the White House has met 100% of the deadlines in that order. I know a lot of those deadlines were for writing plans to do things in different agencies.
Sure.
Can you talk about what tangible results Americans will see in the next 6 months to a year out of all those different plans? You've met those deadlines, but now people will start to see the effect of them.
Sure. I mean, the president talked about this a little bit yesterday, but part of that, and I don't have an exact timeline on it because they all have different implementation efforts, but some tangible things are being able to buy hearing aids over the counter, being able to take some of your products and get them repaired anywhere you want without worrying about that being a challenge. Making sure we're taking steps to address lack of competition that is out there in a range of industries where prices are going up. So every agency is writing different plans, and I'm sure they can detail and outline it in more specifics. But I also, Bharat from our NAC team has been one of the people leading this effort, and maybe I'll see if he can come and give you guys all a more comprehensive briefing. Okay, Todd, last one, and then you guys can get together.
Questions. Some members of Congress have been promoting this theory that the FBI had at least one provocateur in the January 6th bomb. Can the White House say unequivocally that there were no federal agents who provoked illegal attacks?
Well, FBI Director Wray has already said that the FBI had no evidence of this baseless conspiracy, and he would certainly know.
And last week we've seen a number of House Republicans announcing billions of dollars worth of infrastructure projects in their districts. These are Republicans who voted against that bill. What does the White House have to say about that?
We welcome their support for the president's agenda, and an agenda that was supported by some Republicans, not the majority, and hopefully they'll take the right vote to support their communities and job creation in the future. Maybe we'll make them think twice. Thanks, everyone. I'm so sorry. I think some of you guys have to wrap. Oh, you have time? Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut it off so dramatically. Go ahead.
Does the White House have any words of support for the students in D.C. who are currently walking out to protest lax COVID standards in their schools?
Oh, in D.C. and Arlington? Well, look, I think that we understand as a parent myself, but I know these students are dealing with...
There's 3 minutes left. Did they really cut that out? Because that's just going to... I'll find somebody. I'll find for tomorrow the clip, but if 3 minutes I don't get that question, I am going to have to take a walk.
Fears that they have themselves about the fear of going to a school, a classroom, a workplace where you don't feel safe. That is one of the reasons that we have been so supportive and advocated for leaders and school leaders to follow public health guidelines. So, that is the way to keep people safe, to ensure people can feel safe in their school or their workplace, and certainly we support that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jenn. Tomorrow, India is celebrating its 73rd Republic Day. As the leader of world's oldest democracy, what is President Biden's message to the people of world's largest democracy?
Will we join India, the world's largest democracy, in honoring Republic Day, the day that marks the adoption of India's constitution? As President Biden said when India's Prime Minister Modi visited...
Yeah, at least you had that written down, knowing that they let them in the door. It's an important day. They might get that question. She tried to wrap it up without asking it, but they got to it. Good for them.
The White House last September, the relationship between India and the United States is destined to be stronger, closer, and tighter, and it can benefit the whole world. Our partnership is rooted in our shared responsibility to uphold democratic values.
More on Ukraine. India is having a very strong and historic relationship with Russia. President Putin was recently in New Delhi for his annual summit meeting with Prime Minister Modi. President Biden also has a strong friendship with Prime Minister Modi. Does President Biden think that India and Prime Minister Modi in his role can do something with both US and Russia to de-escalate the situation in Ukraine?
Well, we certainly welcome any efforts to de-escalate, and we are in touch with a range of allies and partners on this, but I don't have any specific conversations to read out that relate to Indian officials. Go ahead, Linda, go ahead.
Sure. So the president has nothing on his schedule today aside from the PDB. Can you shed any light on how he's spending his day?
Well, let's see. This morning, I think he had some policy meetings, also a PDB meeting. He, later this afternoon, I think is doing some remarks review. There are some days that we spend some time doing internal meetings and discussions with policy experts, with policy leaders, and that's what's happening today. He would say he doesn't have nearly enough time, free time on his schedule, because it is packed no matter whether people see him or not.
Thursday? Is it a lot of time in the Situation Room? Or?
There will be certainly some time where he'll be meeting with and engaging with his national security team, I'm certain. We have an event tomorrow on Build Back Better where there'll be a number of CEOs here, so that will be part of the day tomorrow as well. Sure.
Forgive me, it's sort of the elephant in the room. Many people look at what we were talking about last night this morning. Does the president regret saying what he said about Peter? Can you shed some light if you have had any conversations with him today about what happened last night?
Well, I would say what's most important, and it's Peter's sitting here, so this is kind of a funny thing, but the president called Peter, and he confirmed this, so this is only why I'm speaking to this. And if you have private conversations with the president, I will assure you I'm not going to convey that on your behalf. But Peter spoke to this. The president called him. He conveyed to him that it was nothing personal, man, and also acknowledged that all of you are going to ask him a range of questions. So I think that speaks for itself. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully I did that justice.
Person familiar.
Person familiar.
That dumb son of a bitch that got called it. Perfect, because his questions were stupid today. Oh, you came in and asked stupid questions, and you're the one that got hot mic'd on stupid son of a bitch. That is perfect. That guy was a moron today, and that was a long, boring, tedious process, and I apologize for it taking so long, and it's literally the last question. He almost didn't even get it in.
This is the world's first reusable cotton swab.
Didn't get it in. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect that almost didn't happen. So I'm going to have to go to Kim Iverson, I think, because...
What's on your radar? Well, there's a lot of talk right now about Russia and...
Yeah, Russia and Ukraine. We have to go and listen to somebody after that, a palate cleanser of the Russia-Ukraine narrative that we just got fed massively through every single person that talked at the White House press briefing. They always have to bring up Ukraine and Russia.
Invading Ukraine, sending the military-industrial complex supporting establishment into a frenzy. They gasp with horror, oh no, we can't let this happen. But the reality is they would love nothing more. What better way to justify spending billions more on defense than a perceived Russian threat? Not only that, but Russia is the boogeyman we get to blame for all of our problems. If they actually make a move into Ukraine, it will seem to legitimize those claims. And believe me, we will be hearing about it nonstop. Democrats will be pointing the finger once again at the Russians when they lose elections this coming fall. Oh no, it wasn't our mandates and crushing of schools and businesses that caused it. It was obviously the Russians. And look at how bad they are. They invaded Ukraine. They'll say this fully knowing most Americans know nothing about Ukraine, its politics, or its demographics. And war
and will take whatever mainstream media they follow at face value.
Hungry Republicans will be chomping at the bit, pointing at Russia's growing influence in Syria, Iran, Venezuela, and China to prove they are an enemy we must continue to spend billions of taxpayer dollars to counter. Meanwhile, average Americans worry this could mean sending troops overseas and entering another war. But the reality is, if Russia does annex parts of Ukraine, and that's very possible, the U.S. won't and shouldn't do anything about it. Everything we're hearing is just noise to continue supporting political agendas and to keep money flowing into the defense sectors. First of all, Ukraine is a new country with very little history of national independence. Throughout its existence, it's pretty much been an area controlled by Russians. And because of its close historical ties with Russia, its population is heavily Russian. Some parts, the majority, 1 in 6 Ukrainian is actually, in some parts the majority, 1 in 6 Ukrainians is actually an ethnic Russian. 1 in 3 speaks Russian as their native language. For a portion of the Ukrainian population, Russia is viewed as a source of shared history and culture. For others, particularly ethnic Ukrainians, Russia is viewed as an oppressor. Most of the ethnic Russians and Russian speakers live in Crimea and eastern Ukraine near the Russian border. Now, Russia is not going to launch a full-on invasion into Ukraine. If Russia does enter Ukraine, it will be only to areas which are dominated and controlled by those ethnic Russians and native Russian speakers. Because of this, they will be met with virtually zero resistance, except by Ukrainian soldiers. In fact, many will view them as liberators and will be cheering them in. And as we've learned from Afghanistan, if the people are waving in and cheering the opposing soldiers as they enter the area, then there's no point in us even attempting to counter it. The support of the people in question is kind of important. And this is exactly why we did nothing after Russia annexed Crimea. The Crimean people, who were overwhelmingly ethnic Russians and Russian-speaking, welcomed the troops. And when asked if they'd rather be a part of Ukraine or Russia, their response was overwhelmingly in favor of Russia. Again, you can't win a war if the people don't support you. Obama wisely left it alone, even though he took many personal hits for it. Now, for Russia, the motivation to annex Crimea and the parts of Ukraine currently in question isn't just because they want to unify ethnic Russians or honor these ethnic Russians' request to separate from Ukraine. For Russia, it's about national security and the growing threat of NATO. Now, NATO was never meant to expand into Eastern Europe, and really it could be argued that the existence of NATO has been unnecessary after the fall of the Soviet Union.
Or that we could reform some sort of NATO-esque program probably should have happened a decade ago, 15 years ago, but that doesn't need to be brought up. And maybe an actual council that's not headed by US, UK, and France, the three nations that are continually trying to keep war.
It was set up to counter the Soviets, and with the Soviet Union gone, why do you need it? Western Europe no longer feels any threat that Russia is going to try and take them over. Nonetheless, NATO has continued to exist and expand, and the latest talk of expansion includes bringing Ukraine into NATO. And Russia is not going to tolerate NATO bases and soldiers right up on their border. Now, one way Russia has been able to halt the expansion of NATO has been to have pro-Russian leadership in Ukraine. However, in 2014, rather than allow the duly elected pro-Russian president to finish his term until 2016, there is evidence that U.S. officials, at minimum, supported, but perhaps even facilitated, a coup to remove the pro-Russian president in favor of a pro-U.S.
Abracadabra. We always interrupt. We always interfere. It is like our deepest shadow that we constantly criticize other countries are ruining our elections when we're literally trying to ruin 40, 50, 60 elections at a time.
Instead, they took advantage of a moment of civil unrest in Ukraine to make the swap. The cause of the unrest was that much of the ethnic Ukrainian population, who views Russia as an oppressor, was upset that the pro-Russian president had favored Russia over doing a deal with Europe. After the coup ensued and a new U.S.-backed regime was installed, the ethnic Russians were dismayed with parts breaking into civil war. Russia took the opportunity to swoop in and annex Crimea, sending a signal to the West that their meddling in Ukrainian politics and the attempt to align Ukraine with Europe and NATO was unwelcome. But the U.S. hasn't backed down, and neither has Russia on this issue. Russia has continued to tell the U.S. to leave Ukraine alone, that adding them to NATO is an issue of Russian national security. The U.S. has continued to ignore Russia's concerns and marched ahead anyway, and a lot of this is about economics and alliances. Europe, particularly Germany, is becoming increasingly partnered with Russia, especially for energy. And Russia can supply Europe with cheap natural gas.
Hey, look at that. That's why Russia wants the area, so they can move gas. That's why America wants them not in the area, so they can not move gas. So our allies can move gas. Almost always comes down to the oil.
Europe's increasing reliance on Russian energy makes the U.S. uncomfortable because it threatens U.S. alliances, especially on other foreign policy issues. As Europe cozies up to Russia, the U.S. might find European nations less likely to join in on U.S. conflicts that may be proxy wars with Russia and more likely to remain neutral instead. And we're already starting to see this. Germany has cautioned the U.S. and others to rethink sanctions they might be looking to impose on Russia over the current conflict in Ukraine. So this just brings me back to where I started. All of this is just theater. No matter what Russia does, the U.S. isn't going to do anything about it and really can't without the support of the people in these areas and without the support of the important European allies we rely on. We're going to keep hearing about this in the news with Democrats using it to blame Russia for all of our domestic problems and Republicans using it to paint Biden as weak the same way they did with Obama. It's a political win for everyone in Washington. And it's even a win for Russia and the people in these areas who would rather be with Russia than Ukraine if they had to choose. Actually, the only loser is Ukraine. They're being used as a political pawn for our political games, when in reality, it's in their best interest to be friendly to their neighbors. They're instead almost in a hostage situation, and worse, being forced into civil unrest. They're reliant on U.S. funds, and as a new developing nation, they certainly can't afford U.S. sanctions.
That is two ways the World Bank and the United States keep people hostage. They rely on our funds, and they rely to not get sanctioned. If they get sanctioned, they are screwed. And if we cut them off, they are typically screwed as well.
So there's
economic war.
Continuing to do and say whatever it is each administration in the White House wants them to say and do. And if it were up to them, they'd have good relations with both Europe and Russia and the United States for that matter, but they're not being allowed to because larger, more powerful countries have a political agenda, and that's the real tragedy of what's going on. So
yeah, I feel like that wraps up our a better view of what, instead of Jenn Psaki, instead of what happened there at the White House press briefing, that was a better synopsis of what's going on possibly in the Ukraine conflict. Let's go ahead and call it a conflict. But let's do this last thing and wrap it up. So our Republican for the night, Troy Balderson. This is another just random as can be. Looked him up barely. And then, why not attack him, right? He is the 12th Republican from Ohio. He's literally looked up by his last name. He was the first Republican I found by last name that I haven't thought about yet. So we're going to do this, knock it out quick. 202-225-5355. He is in the Newark, looks like a nice gerrymandered area of Ohio, in the 12th district, outside Cincinnati. Greater areas, if I remember right. It's been a while since I looked at this. Yeah, down there north of Cincinnati. Oh, right in kind of the center of the state. I didn't think it was that close to Columbus, so gerrymandered district outside of Columbus, Ohio. Our Ballotpedia, looky-loo here. He is an Ohio State University person, so go figure he'd be right next to that. And he is a motor sales entrepreneur, small business entrepreneur, but he got put in the agricultural and the transit business because he sells cars, and I guess the agricultural because he sells cars. Yeah, fantastic. He is not in a competitive district per se. His last election, 55% to 55 to 42. With the Libertarian getting 3%, and he did not have much of a battle in his primary as well. So this is an easy district for him to pick up. He's been in it now since 2018, so he came in with the Trumpians, and his influencers for his short career so far have been nationwide is on your side. Isn't that great? Never any problems when there's an insurance company as your number one. I'll tell you that. Leadership PACs. Yeah. He took over somebody he was in a special election, took over for somebody who was picked up by the Trump administration, and then they put in somebody they knew would win. He's raised a bit of money, and he spent it, but he didn't have a close race to spend. He just spent it so people would have name recognition. And he is held up by a couple insurance companies and a couple PACs. So, oil and gas is a top industry as well. So that is oil, gas, tax, and the insurance industry. So I'm sure he is going to be looking out for common people and never, ever, ever looking out for just massive companies, huh? And the amount of people here that are just click onable, Wendy's, Graham, Marathon Petroleum, so oil and gas, Coke Industries. Oh, we had to slip in Coke Industries. Oh, that's just all right. Well, if your Coke bought and paid for, then you've been finding money in so many alternative ways that I won't be able to find it in this kind of night. But I do find it interesting whenever you find somebody who had Coke money. He's only worth $48,000. That's his net worth. He's just a struggling owner of a business again, business owner. Remember, business owner. Oh, business owner of a motor sales place. He's only worth $50,000. So he makes $174,000 a year. He's only worth $50,000. So I don't believe anybody that has that kind of on the face scale. He's the poor man, working man. He just owns a small business, sells cars, and was funded by the Koch brothers, and came in through the Trumpian style of elections. So I don't know much about this guy that made me gross about him, and this will be a live reaction because I don't really want to watch it, but I think it's a good way to finish tonight, guys. So yeah, if you know anybody in the Columbus area, Troy Balderson is a disgusting Koch brothers, disgusting Trumpian style candidate, and get rid of your incumbents.
It's a small town with a rich history, Zanesville, Ohio. It's once again thriving downtown, fought and persevered through many challenges over the past few years, most notably the COVID-19 shutdown. I'm Sarah Chamberlain. We've chosen this mid-Ohio town to talk about how Capitol Hill can affect Main Street, Zanesville. In this episode, we're here to talk to their local congressman, Troy Balderson, to get his take. I wonder where he is.
I hate it. The guy that owns that motorcycle and is that ridiculous as a drive-in is only worth $48,000. I'm not getting happy, and at all.
This is the power capital of the world.
It is?
Yes. It all started here, yeah.
Oh.
It's really exciting right now. In downtown communities, there's opportunity zones out there that was done a couple years during Congress.
Opportunity zones. You're saying this in a standard, like, sideways Main Street talk. You're talking about opportunity zones.
People are taking advantage of and reinvesting into their downtowns. You know, sir, this is some of the things that have happened down here in downtown Zanesville with revitalization. And these are the businesses that were impactful to the Paycheck Protection Program and the work that we did in D.C. So, you know, when constituents ask,
I know many millionaires, and I can give you a dozen stories of millionaires that abused the hell out of that PPP loan. So please, no.
what do you do in D.C.? You know, we try to direct them here and let them know that we've helped their local communities.
You seem very proud to be from here.
I love this place, and born and raised here.
Yeah.
This is the only wide bridge in the United States.
Really?
If you see the blue buildings,
Yes?
that's Armco Steel, a long-standing company here in the community. It's now called Cleveland Cliffs. Sarah, this is one of our local family restaurants, and we have such an abundant amount.
Long-standing business. Now condos. God, do they even hear themselves sometimes? I'm done with them. All right. That was long enough, guys. I think that would turn me into about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Long enough show. for the night. I had another video, but I'm going to save it for tomorrow. I will bring you a collection of other videos. I had a download. Australia had a protest today about their Indigenous Day, and they wanted to change the direction of it. And so I'll do a little bit something on that. I saw the live stream, but I think we need maybe an Australian interpretation. So I'll try to find somebody to do that. And yeah, 12:20 tomorrow night. Let's do another takedown, and I might start streaming by midnight, but definitely log on by 12:20, and we'll take somebody else down. And let's keep taking out these incumbents. All the incumbents are horrible. Let's get rid of them all. And stay stony.